I'm here at Knebworth House in Hertfordshire, and wow, what an extraordinary Victorian Gothic building. 19 generations of the Lytton family have lived here, and the current custodian is an American just like me, so I cannot wait to find out what it's been like for her to live in such a magnificent historic house. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses. Knebworth House exudes romance, mystery, and intrigue with its turrets, domes, and gargoyles. The 19th century Gothic facade shields layers of architectural secrets dating back to the Tudor era. Knebworth is home to Henry and Martha Lytton Cobbold and their family. And I'm meeting Martha, also an American, who has embraced living here surrounded by British heritage, and is doing all she can to preserve Knebworth for future generations.
Hi, Julie. Hello. Nice to see you. So nice to see you. And to hear that American accent, it is nice, I have to say.
Absolutely. It's lovely to have another one here. Always a pleasure.
Wow.
We headed out into the courtyard so I could hear more about this amazing building.
The house is quite exceptional. The Domesday Book tells me there was a building here in 1085, but this building,
yes,
we believe was here in 1490. And it was altered by Sir Robert Lytton when he acquired the house. But it was then fortified and enhanced, and we know that he started that work around 1500. He finished around 1586.
Okay.
But it was a four-sided building that went all the way around this courtyard with an open courtyard here.
But can I then ask what happened to the other three sides?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can still see a window here, and whenever we do restoration work, we try to leave a window so you can see back to what the origins of the building were. This is the red brick Tudor building, which actually still exists in this quarter of what's remaining of Knebworth House. So the house remained largely the way Sir Robert and Roland Lytton left it in the 1500s until about 1811. You know, it was a time where the houses were just too big to manage. The estates were struggling. This was when Victorian grain was being imported.
Yes.
And the house was inherited by a young widow, Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton, in 1811.
Okay.
It was too big for her. It was not manageable.
No.
She took three sides down and building some towers onto it. It didn't have the tops at this point.
Oh my gosh.
But just a few towers and the lime render to make it look a little fresher. Her son in 1843 inherited.
Right.
And he's the one that put the copper domes and all the heraldic Gothic decoration with bats and with gargoyles. So you've got all of this high Gothic Victoriana, very fashionable of its time, which was recreated on our house.
Right.
And it is very, very unique.
Yeah.
There aren't many houses like this in England.
I mean, when I walked through the gates, I was like, oh my goodness. Even during that period when that Victorian Gothic sort of revival came up, it was that period you still wanted to show off.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we go back to Robert Lytton. He needed an important house when he was working with King Henry VII. It's always been the case.
Yeah.
Now, in 1880, we had Robert Lytton, Edward's son, who
Okay.
then made further Victorian embellishments. And he built the water tower and the watchtower. And the water tower was housing the water for the entire estate, not just the house. What's quite interesting is my father-in-law reconnected it in 1970, and we used it right up until 2014.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that's
And at that point,
extraordinary.
we were able to connect on to the mains throughout. And,
Throughout, yeah.
you know, but it was amazing.
Brilliant. Well, should we head inside?
Let's pop inside.
Whew. Gosh, it's
On a lovely brisk spring day.
it's England. It is a huge privilege to film at so many historic houses across the UK, just like this one in Inverara Castle. And many of these homes are still owned by the families who have lived in them for centuries. The owners and custodians of these magnificent buildings do all they can to ensure these homes survive and thrive for current and future generations. And in this series, you can see how their passion and dedication shine through, despite the many challenges of preserving these gems of Britain's heritage. There is, however, a wonderful nonprofit organization to which hundreds of these properties belong, including Mapperton. It's called Historic Houses. And you too now have the opportunity to support this vital work preserving the living history of Britain's heritage. As a member of Historic Houses, you will be able to explore hundreds of the most beautiful historic houses, castles, and gardens across the UK, in person and online as well. You will receive invitations to exclusive, intimate online talks from the house owners themselves, as well as seminars on all sorts of exciting art, architecture, and history subjects. There is a stunning quarterly magazine sent straight to your door, and it covers lots of heritage topics, but also fun stuff too, including stories from house owners. And the Historic Houses website is packed with extra information on these houses, as well as video tours and previous seminars from experts and historians. There are also extraordinary opportunities for travel and tours, with many providing exclusive behind-the-scenes access to these glorious castles, manors, and stately homes, perfect for planning your next UK vacation. And it's not just those who live in Britain who can enjoy Historic Houses membership. It's open to everyone, wherever you live in the world. And for Historic Houses international members, there are many, many exciting benefits. Plus, if you're visiting Britain, you can use your Historic Houses membership card to visit many of the places that appear in this series for free, alongside hundreds of other wonderful houses. Furthermore, I've set up a very special code which gives you a discount on your Historic Houses yearly membership. So please see the details in the description below. Don't miss out on the chance to step into this amazing world and support the exciting future of Britain's extraordinary privately owned historic houses.
Music, literature, politics, all feature in the history of Knebworth. From the record-breaking rock concerts held in the park, to royal visits, to the literary genius of members of the Lytton family, each generation has contributed to its rich tapestry of history.
So this banqueting hall is just so majestic and so wonderful. And this is part of the original Tudor house. The property was acquired in 1490 by Robert Lytton. Because of his work, he was able to purchase this property and to alter the structure.
Right.
Robert will have taken oak beams from the estate to create this extraordinary ceiling.
In one sense, you almost look to him as kind of like the founding father
Absolutely.
of Knebworth.
Certainly the founding Lytton father.
Right.
And it's the Lytton family who have been here for over 500 years. It has passed through the female line a few times.
Yeah.
And the name Lytton keeps getting pulled back in.
Right, right.
But he is our founding father.
How wonderful.
As you were saying earlier, it was a time for showing off and showing prestige and showing, you know, here we are on the top of the hill in the great county of Hertfordshire. We did have Queen Elizabeth the first come to visit. We did. And in fact, we've had Queen Elizabeth II come to visit too. But you know, that is what these houses are for.
Yes.
Many generations later, Edward Bulwer-Lytton and Charles Dickens used to perform in this room. The acoustics are really very good. I won't sing for you.
But you can if you want to, Martha.
We've had some extraordinary people come in and sing, and the acoustics are fantastic. The Minstrels Gallery up here can be used.
I was about to say, this is just brilliant.
We've
there.
reenacted Christmas Carol theatrical readings here in front of the fireplace, and we've had local community choir groups come in and perform. And Edward Bulwer-Lytton's welcoming poem, "Read the reed of this old roof tree, here be trust safe, opinion free. Knightly right hand, Christian knee, worth in all, wit in some, laughter open, slander dumb. Hearth where rooted friendships grow, safe as altar even to foe. Home where chivalry and grace cradle a high-hearted race. If thy sap in these may be, fear no winter, old roof tree." So you can come and speak your mind. All are welcome.
It's wonderful.
You get visitors who come because of the tourism link with filming, or the tourism link with history and heritage, or the literature connection, or the women, or there's all sorts of things.
It's like what you said, Martha, it broadens your market because we're always looking to widen sort of the net in order to bring more people in.
But it is first and foremost a family home.
Yeah.
And that is part of what our visitors really enjoy seeing and experiencing. This is our family home. So we come from the Jacobean banqueting hall into the white dining parlour.
Yes, and light, bright.
It is now, but it didn't used to be. It had a much heavier Victorian look about it, with very heavy wall coverings and paintings and ceiling paintings. But at the time, that was considered very heavy and very dated.
Yes.
You know, much of the furniture kept because the Victorians kept the curtains pulled. And you move from the white dining parlour into a Victorian library. And let me just shut the door behind you because it gives the illusion of being completely encapsulated by the library.
Brilliant.
It is an amazingly beautiful and rich room. When Edward Bulwer-Lytton moved here with his mother, he was a young boy, and he had visited and experienced his grandfather's collection. His grandfather had a world-renowned library.
Right, of course.
They sold it. They couldn't afford to keep. There wasn't very much here anyway when Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton moved here as a young widow. But they had to liquidate to raise the funds to simplify and modernize the house to make it a family home. And the library was sold. Her son Edward became a prolific writer. He wrote poetry, he wrote plays, and he wrote novels. And he more or less filled his own library.
Oh my goodness.
And this wall here are all of his novels.
I guess he must feel he brought the library back to life.
And what's interesting is Robert, his
it.
son, this is Robert, very handsome man above the fireplace. And Robert was a very accomplished man in his own right too. He loved writing. He wrote many poems under the name Owen Meredith, very popular in America. Many of our ancestors would have had Owen Meredith on their bookcases. But he was asked by his father to publish under that name because he didn't want the competition. So yes, he filled the library, and yes, he did many wonderful, wonderful things, but he was also a man of great pride.
Right. He had sort of claimed his fame and wanted to make sure that...
He was the poet.
Yeah. He was the poet.
He was the poet. But Robert wrote some beautiful things.
And did he marry and have children?
Yes, he married Edith Villiers.
Okay.
They had a very large family, 3 beautiful girls. Constance Lytton is a very famous suffragette.
And that's one of his daughters.
And Robert's son, Victor, is the Lytton line here.
This is what's so wonderful. When the public comes to these historic houses, they get to see all of these generations that have lived here. Yeah. This is the stuff I want to see as a visitor.
And people love the family photographs. So this takes us through into the armory. And this is a particularly interesting area of the house because this is the exterior wall of the original Tudor house. And you can see the very traditional diamond brickwork there. And they would make the darker bricks by burning them, and then use it as part of the decoration. And again, we wanted to leave a little window back into the history.
Goodness.
But when this was altered by an architect called Biagio Rebecca for Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton, they realized they didn't have a grand staircase to go upstairs. And so this was bumped out.
I see.
And you created this, this beautiful...
So she built this.
Yeah.
Did you discover that?
During restoration, and we're always doing restoration. There's always something that needs doing.
You've discovered quite a lot so far. I've only been in 3 rooms.
Exactly. And what you know, it's always something that will get started, and sometimes for whatever reason it doesn't get finished. And we recently just finished the whole of the ceiling in the last year. Many of the wooden strats were failing. In fact, we got the whole tower scaffold, which you can imagine at this height up there. My colleague called me, which he loves doing, and say, guess what I found? And the strap was held on by 1 nail. And we have visitors coming in here. You just cannot imagine. And so that was immediately repaired, and these beautiful carvings were reinstated. It gave us the opportunity to do further restoration on the archways. The wooden paneling that we've got here, this is actually part of a film set.
Is it?
We were being filmed for Victoria and Abdul. This was meant to be Balmoral. And the most amazing craftsmen came in, because the film crews just have extraordinary teams.
Yep, and budgets.
And built this paneling to match our paneling. And we decided after they left that we wanted to keep 2 bits of it.
Yep.
And so you find that pieces will get added on to.
Yes.
It's important that it is living, and part of this comes to it. And we tell our visitors, that's a film prop.
That's right. And that's the story being added on. It doesn't just stop.
It's not static.
With Victor, presumably.
It's not an aspect.
Right.
And you know, that's the joy of a private, independent, family lived-in home. We're always moving things. Yep. My archivist said, stop hanging pictures. I'm like, well, you know, that's part of it.
It's fun.
And when we put the paneling in, we had to take all the armor out. We had to remove the paintings. But it gave us an opportunity, because I told you the house came through Henry's grandmother. That's Hermione here. We decided to rehang the portraits to tell the story of that succession. So Victor Lytton, her father, was the heir and the owner of the estate.
Yes.
She never expected to take on the estate. She had 2 brothers. She sadly lost both of them, and the house came to her, but the title went to Neville, Victor's brother. All 3 of these portraits were painted by Neville. He was an amazing artist.
Incredible.
They're all painted by Neville, and so it's wonderful to have his work here, but also the family history.
All the heraldry here. Incredible. These stained glass.
All of this was put in by Edward Bulwer-Lytton. And again, he was fascinated with the family heraldry and the quartering of the family coats of arms and crests. And he wanted very much to remember and honor his mum. Yeah. So that's when so much of this came in. And it is magnificent.
When Edward Bulwer-Lytton inherited Knebworth from his mother Elizabeth in 1843, he commissioned the architect John Crace to redesign the Long Gallery and to reflect his mother's ancestry.
What's really cool about this room is that it didn't have any heating or radiators until Henry and I put some in, which was about 15 years ago. It was very cold. It faces north. It was not hospitable, and so it kind of got left and forgotten. If it had been altered, like all the other rooms, I probably wouldn't have this Crace chandelier. I mean, how magnificent is that?
It's so
And this extraordinary design of the fireplace with suspended ostrich eggs.
Oh my goodness!
You know, incredible artistry and craftsmanship. So we're quite pleased that it wasn't the fashionable room, and it was an area where things were stored. But it is also an area that has a lot of restoration constantly needing. And I've recently just finished this wall. When you look over here, you can see this was the state of it.
Oh my gosh, yes you can, Martha.
This is watering grass.
No.
And every time we've had the money to do something to the structure of the building, we've never had the budget to work on the interior decoration.
Right.
And it's only recently, because we've had some success with our film location work, with the Crown filming here, or The Gentleman, which is out at the minute. What I've started doing is taking a very small percentage, like 5% of our filming revenue, so that I've got a tiny little budget and that I can actually do some work on some of the interiors. And that's how we've worked on the wallpaper. It's how we've stabilized these pelmets. These are the original pelmets. And they were in shreds. All of the tassels and the trim were hanging off. And again, I've managed to find someone with a bit of skill to help. Well, I've got peeling bits over here as well. Where I can, we try to do a few bits, but you know, there's always pieces that are falling off. And this room would have been 2.5 times longer in the original house. And this is where the ladies would have exercised out of the sunlight.
So this was the long gallery.
Indeed, over a colonnade originally. And what we now find, Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton decided to make this very ornate. She had a fight with the vicar. And if you look out the window, you can see the 12th century church, much older than the house. He had a great presence in this area, but so did Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton, because she was running the estate. He and she fought over the tithe, the traditional tithe, which would normally have been 10% of all of the estate's drawings. And she felt it was a little bit unfair when she was growing pineapples in her greenhouse.
As you do.
Her treasured pineapples. And he wanted his share. And she said, enough is enough. And so she stopped attending his services. She started conducting services in this room. And everyone who worked for her, which was essentially the whole village and parish, needed to attend services here. So she left it that he was preaching to an empty church.
Oh my goodness.
This is interesting. My family, I don't know if you knew this, but my family come from a newspaper publishing background. My grandfather, my father had a wonderful series of newspapers, over 80 newspapers still today in America, which my half-sister Catherine is running. But this painting is of a printing press. Now, the printing press manuals in America until very recently had this very image on them. Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
You get these weird little connections that often happen.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, it just blows your mind when you get these wonderful little nuggets.
But this is a wonderful room because it's so ornate but also precious, and you must be obviously incredibly careful. It's fragile.
It is.
Do you use it so often though?
It's a really good question. The house has to work hard for itself.
Yeah.
The room is used a lot.
Yeah.
And obviously it's used for our day visitors. And my mother-in-law always said she wanted it to be her bedroom. It would be a magnificent bedroom. But there isn't any plumbing up here.
Yeah, I don't think I could have it as a bedroom.
And remember, there weren't even radiators until quite recently.
Yeah. How extraordinary.
And beautiful views of the park.
Just beautiful.
Yeah, it did incredible. So this brings you into the Red Passage, and this is where more of the formal bedrooms are. Pop in here, this is our Chinese bedroom. So many stately homes, it's traditional to have a Chinese bedroom. This is great fun.
Oh, wow.
And you have to get in this bed. So this would have been a bridal bed. No. And it flat packs, and it would travel with the bride and groom.
You're kidding me.
I'm completely serious.
So then,
but it's not very romantic, because I think you would have had an attendant sat there.
Who brought this into the family?
This was brought in by my parents-in-law. There was an old Chippendale bed in here, which was terribly uncomfortable, I gather, and one can't have an uncomfortable piece of furniture. And this is, of course, very comfortable and not creaky or rickety in any way.
No, it's super comfortable.
But this was put in to populate this wonderful Chinese room. Now, this is hand-painted Chinese wallpaper.
You're kidding me.
This is rather fun. We know that Charles Dickens stayed in this room. We believe that this inspired him when writing David Copperfield, and they were trying to come up with Jip's house. This was the design, so that when the dog went into his house and the little bells rang, it created a little bit of uncertainty for Jip.
Right.
Yes. But you can guess what it actually is.
Well, it's a pagoda.
No, but what would they have put in it?
Oh, the ashes.
The potty.
The potty. I'm thinking, I'm terribly wrong with that. Look at it.
It's a decorative potty holder.
It's a decorative potty holder. Here I was thinking that it was going to be some type of urn that went in there.
No, I'm
with
afraid
ashes.
it's really quite basic.
All right. So who put this room together? Because it's quite exquisite.
Well, it's been a multi-generational effort.
Right.
You know, the wallpaper would have gone in 150 years ago, and then it would have been adjusted
Right.
and evolved
And added
over
on.
time, including my parents-in-law.
Could be my favorite room so far.
The Hampden room, this one we designed as a nursery because the nursery was upstairs, but when my parents-in-law opened the house on a regular basis in the 70s, and remember they took it on at a time where it was deemed a lost cause.
Of course, of course.
And my grandmother-in-law had tried to gift it to the nation, to the National Trust. We didn't have enough endowment and they said no. She then tried to look for alternative uses. It was at one point to become the University of Hertfordshire. And there are great plans of that, which we have in our archives, but it didn't.
But it didn't.
And David and Chrissy said, we'd like to give it a go. So they
Thank
moved
goodness.
in, buckets everywhere.
Yep.
Chrissy hand making curtains in various rooms. And they brought many of the nursery items downstairs.
Okay.
And which is important for our visitors to see. But these are things that were used. This doll's house belonged to Hermione's aunt. She always said it was a ridiculous doll's house because there weren't any stairs and she couldn't quite understand how the dolls got up and down the stairs.
It's a fair point.
But it was hers.
Yes,
Her
yes.
much-loved Steiff bear. And the cradle, which my daughter Morwenna slept in when we first moved back for a visit. And more of the Tudor wall stenciling here. Whenever we can do it, we'll show a little window of what's behind the plaster. And you can see it even when on the timbers.
This is incredible. And you uncovered that.
We've uncovered that during our restoration process. This is fun too, Julie. Put your hand gently on the seat of that.
This one.
Yep. Just press on where it's raised and hold it down. How much fun as a child.
Oh my goodness.
And
this would have been my favorite chair.
Isn't it magnificent? My mother-in-law, you know, we started concerts over 50 years ago, and my mother-in-law was taking Frank Zappa through the house, as you do.
Yes, as
and
you do.
She played that, and he said, no wonder you Brits are so crazy. You've had
Yeah.
music coming out of your backsides from its infancy. But, you know.
It's, oh. Okay, now this could be my favorite room.
Well,
just because there's so many sort of bits and bobs all telling a story, and that's what's wonderful.
This is Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton's room, and it is very much of a Regency style. I mean, to the point that you've got a door over here which goes nowhere. It's only there for balance and symmetry.
I see.
But that was important.
Yep.
She was an artist. She painted her dogs and she painted her horses, and you know, was very involved in her country life. Now, we've tried very hard to keep it as best as we can. Very recently, the silks that we used, Chrissy used her wedding gown silk for recovering the chair and the stool at one point. And we've had to replace some of the silks over the years.
But that's very clever to think of that.
It's trying to, regenerate, recycle. But the room is as close as it can be. And it is a room that is used for filming. It's been used in The Crown. It's been used in all sorts of different productions. Wow. It is a room that is quite cold, and yet it's closer to our living part as well.
Right.
And what we find often with film crews is they do feel a little bit of a presence in this room.
Yeah.
We've had visitors who've slept in this room. I won't put you here, don't worry. But we've had visitors who've slept in this room, woken up, feeling like a pressure's on their chest and a pressure is on their neck.
Right.
And it's unexplained.
Maybe she doesn't like it so much that they're occupying her
It
room,
could be.
considering that saying is this room, long occupied, and so on and so on.
Indeed.
Elizabeth Bulwer-Lytton was a formidable presence at Knebworth. Her strong will was inherited by her great-granddaughter, Lady Constance Lytton, who made personal sacrifices for a greater cause. Jill Campbell, the archivist at Knebworth, explains more.
Hello. I'm Julie.
Hello, I'm Jill. Lovely to meet you.
So nice to meet you.
I'm the archivist here at Knebworth House.
I heard you have the job that I want one day. Can we just have a moment here? Is it just so much fun?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Can I ask you, Jill, before we get into what we're just about to cover, but being the archivist here at Knebworth, are there just thousands of letters, journals, diaries?
Yeah. Yes, there are, yeah. And they're not all catalogued yet, so
Right.
we're still working our way through them.
And what would you say is the most interesting thing you've found so far?
I don't think I can choose one. It's all interesting, yeah. But this collection we're going to look at is very interesting.
Right.
It's our suffrage connection, and it's relating to Lady Constance Lytton, who is the great-granddaughter of Mrs. Elizabeth Ball Lytton.
Right. I saw her bedroom.
That's
There we
right,
go. It's
yeah.
been very well preserved.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
so this is her great-granddaughter.
So another strong woman in the
Very
family.
strong, a very strong woman. And she was actually became involved in the fight for women's suffrage quite late on. She was 29
Okay.
when she became involved, and she joined the Women's Social and Political Union and became a suffragette in 1909.
Okay.
So quite late on in
Yeah.
life to become involved.
See her sort of in some of these photos, just there walking. But that photo to me looks like she's in prison.
She is. She was in prison 4 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so her first imprisonment was only a month after she joined the suffragettes.
And was that just from protesting?
Yes,
Or-
she went on a protest. She was
Yep.
arrested. She was sentenced to a month in Holloway prison. We're actually lucky enough in the archive to have this letter that Constance wrote to her brother Victor, the Earl of Lytton. And it's, as you can see, it's on Holloway notepaper. And it gives you all the rules that you have to follow to be able to write a letter in Holloway.
Oh my gosh. What?
And then you open it up and
and
writes
she's written a
quick,
letter.
A quick letter, March 1909, to her brother. She's just letting him know that she's okay.
Right. This is wonderful. And actually, you can actually read her handwriting there.
And she's still supporting the cause. She's asking him to do things for her that she can't do while she's inside.
Yes. Just reading this, it says, I am filled with things I wish to say. I can't make speeches, but the breakfasts are delightfully informal, whereas you can explain how I hate the formalities and respectabilities of evening feasts. I certainly could not say a word at one of these. It would all seem unsympathetic to me, official, odious. It looks like there because everything there was more informal, she was able to speak her mind.
Yeah, and she's
as a woman compared
she's
to
planning ahead for her release.
Yes.
Because once she's released, this is her first imprisonment. Everybody will want to know what
Yes.
happened. How did she get on? However, it didn't go as planned. She felt that she was being treated kinder than other prisoners because of who she was, because she was Lady Constance Lytton. Her brother was Victor, the Earl of Lytton,
Right.
who was a politician, and she felt that she was getting privileged treatment compared to others. What I should have said was Constance has always had a bit of a weak heart from being a child, so she didn't keep the best health. When she went into the prison, she was given a medical test by doctors, and they picked up her heart. And unfortunately, once again, because of who she was given special treatment, she felt.
Right.
And she was actually released early because of her weak heart.
Oh my goodness.
The dedication of Lady Constance to the suffragette movement became ever more steadfast, even concealing her own identity.
She takes herself off to Manchester. She goes to local shops. She dresses herself as a working seamstress.
Yes.
And she calls herself Jane Wharton. She cuts her hair short.
She wears glasses.
She's got a little pince-nez on her nose, and she gets arrested as Jane Wharton.
I
She
see.
also secretly rejoined the WSPU as Jane Wharton. So they didn't know, no one knew. She did this
Right.
all on her own. Gets arrested.
As
Obviously,
Jane Wharton.
As Jane Wharton. This time, she isn't given a medical, presumably because she's just Jane Wharton, not Lady Constance Lytton.
I see.
So she doesn't get any privileged treatment this time.
So she's happy about this.
She's happy about this, yes, she is. But she decides to go on hunger strike.
And many of them did that, didn't they, the suffragettes?
Yeah, it was quite a new thing at the time.
Right.
She didn't eat for 4 days, and then they decided to start force feeding her, which is a particularly nasty, horrible treatment.
Awful.
And what happens in the end is that the press hear the rumours that Lady Constance Lytton is in prison in disguise, and they contact her sister Emily Lutyens,
Right.
who from the description says, yes, that's my sister. And Emily goes and they release her. She probably would have wanted
Carry
to stay,
on.
but I think she was so ill by then,
Right.
after ate lots of force feeding.
Yes, and also with a weak heart, as you
Yes.
mentioned. Right.
Yeah, so it took her quite a long time to recover after that. This is from Mrs. Emmeline Pethick Lawrence,
Okay.
and it's to Con's brother, Victor. And this is written regarding the Jane Wharton imprisonment.
Okay. Where nobody knew who she was.
No one knew. She did it all on her own.
Yes.
And this is the union, the WSPU, writing to Victor and saying that they knew nothing of this. They didn't force her to do this. She did it by herself. She didn't tell them. And it's quite nice because they're also saying that they can sympathise
Yes.
with the family and how distressing it must have been for them.
So it says, the action of your sister, Lady Constance Lytton, has moved us all profoundly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it says that there's a admiration we feel for the family. Can I turn this?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We are very, very sorry for this. And we too feel intensely with personal grief. But with it are other strong emotions of unthinkable reverence for this heroic woman
Yeah.
and true saint.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that's a really nice letter for the family to receive.
Lady Constance continued to work for the suffragette movement and was arrested a 4th time, but it took its toll and she never fully regained her health. After suffering a stroke, determined to record her experiences, she wrote a book.
Prisons and Prisoners, Some Personal Experiences by Constance Lytton and Jane Wharton, Spinster.
Yes.
I love that.
And this
Gosh.
copy actually she gave to her mother, Edith,
Okay.
and it's got a lovely dedication there to
Oh, for my darling mother, from her devoted Con. Oh, they call her Con.
Con, yeah, everyone calls her Con. But as this was Edith's copy, she's written in the copy this, and if you want to read that.
Yes, I mean, here we go. A human document, touchingly and beautifully written, and helps one to forgive her for following the leaders of such a movement in spite of the acute pain of the whole thing. So who writes that?
This is Edith, so
this
Con's
is
mum.
Con's
so
mum
yeah,
writes
she's
this.
written it in her copy, and she's had it pasted in
Right.
to the book, which is
Oh,
really
that
lovely
is
thing to
lovely.
have. Yeah.
But it's amazing what these women did because, of course, because of them, then there was that act that was passed by Parliament
Yeah.
for women to vote. Is that right?
So
Was she alive?
She was,
to
yeah.
see
she
that
was,
happen?
She was alive to see the 1918
Right.
Act go through, which she was very pleased about.
And remind me, the 1918 Act, what were the parameters around that?
That gave women over the age of 30, the vote.
Okay.
And they had to have certain property qualifications, be householders. But it still didn't give them completely equal rights to men.
No.
That didn't happen until 1928, and sadly Con died in 1923.
Okay.
But she saw the first results.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, how incredible! It's just so empowering. I think for women in particular to be able, and you as the archivist here, for you to be able to research this and in one sense be able to see what she experienced so that we could have that right to vote.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. See, that's why I want your job. Because it's so interesting. It's so interesting. Well, gosh, thank you, Jill, so much. This is wonderful to see this, to be able to look at this book, but also just to hear you tell the story of Con.
Thank you.
I always
enjoyed
refer to her
telling
as
it.
Con now.
Yeah. Well,
brilliant.
she was always called Con by the family, so.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lady Constance Lytton died at the age of only 54, but her legacy lives on. She is buried in the mausoleum in the park at Knebworth, with his epitaph inscribed in stone. Endowed with a celestial sense of humor, boundless sympathy, and rare musical talent, she devoted the later years of her life to the political enfranchisement of women and sacrificed her health and talents in helping to bring victory to the cause. Like so many historic houses across the UK, Knebworth is in need of constant repair and restoration.
But you can see we've still got a lot to do. The last estimation was about £14 million to complete the southern roofs, the southern roofs, and the structural repairs that we have.
Yeah. And to pay for much of this restoration work, the house and park have to earn their keep.
Knebworth Park is the UK's largest music venue, and for over 50 years, it has hosted some of the biggest names in rock and roll, including the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Oasis, Queen, and the list goes on and on. So The Rock has helped to roll in funds to pay for some vital restorations in order to preserve this part of England's heritage.
Do consider becoming an American Viscountess patron. Here, you'll receive episodes early and ad-free, plus American Viscountess merchandise and much more. We can't make these important historic house episodes without the support of our patrons.